Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome back to our another past paper session for bio. Today we'll be solving October-November 2025 with the variant 2-1. So let's quickly start with our first question. Okay, so the first question asks you that figure 1.1 shows the female human reproductive system as viewed from the front. In part A, you need to identify the letter on figure 1.1 that has been used to label the area where each of the following happens. So the first thing they asked is where sperm is deposited. So you know that sperm enters through vagina and enters the cervix. Hence, the correct position for the deposition of the sperm is this region, which is marked as E. Okay. Then they ask where estrogen is produced. So where the estrogen is produced, it is produced in ovaries, right? So the correct answer would be C. This is your ovaries. Okay, next is where the implantation occurs. So implantation occurs in the body of the fundus, hence the correct option would be A. Okay, moving on to the next part. Some women can have blockages in the tubes labeled B. Explain why this would prevent them from becoming pregnant. Okay, so basically, you know that sperm meets with the egg and causes fertilization in the fallopian tube, which is this tube. If there is blockage here, if there is a blockage in this region, if there is a blockage in this region, obviously the sperm will not be able to meet with the egg and hence the fertilization will not be able to occur. So what are the two important points here? That number one, the sperm cannot fuse with egg, hence there will be no fertilization. And when there is no fertilization, the female will not be able to get pregnant. Okay, in part C, in vitro fertilization, which is IVF, can be used to help women who have blocked tubes to get pregnant. It involves the several steps. So there are important steps. Step one, ovaries are stimulated to produce a large number of eggs. Eggs are removed from the ovaries before they are released naturally. So before ovulation occurs, the eggs are extracted from the ovaries, and then the eggs are fertilized with the sperm, and the fertilized eggs are replaced into the uterus. So, in step one, the patient is injected with a hormone. Name a hormone that could be used. So, in step one, what are we doing? We are stimulating the ovaries to produce large number of eggs. So, you know that ovaries are stimulated by a hormone which is known as follicle stimulating hormone. Okay, which is also known as FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. Moving on to the next part, it says that in step two, a drug is used to stop the action of luteinizing hormone. Explain why it is important to stop the action of LH. So basically, you can see that in step two, what is happening? The eggs are removed from the ovaries before they are released naturally. So this releasing of the eggs from the ovary is basically the function of the luteinizing hormone, and we do not want the eggs to be released into the fallopian tubes because we want to extract the eggs. So what we'll be doing, we need to stop the releasing of the um, eggs. Hence, we have to stop or inhibit the luteinizing hormone. So why is it important? Because luteinizing hormone, which is LH, is responsible for stimulating the release of eggs. Hence, eggs can be collected from the ovaries. Okay, moving on to the next part. When a man and a woman are unable to have children, they are said to be infertile couple. They are estimated to be 90 million infertile couples in the world. There are many causes of infertility, but 17% of the cases are due to blocked tubes in the women. Calculate the number of couples in the world whose infertility is due to blocked tubes in the women. Give your answer in the standard form. So basically, what was the percentage? 17% of the 90 million population. Okay, were infertile couples. Hence, we'll be calculating this value and it will come approximately 1.53 into 10 raised to the power of 7. And we have to give it in this form because they have asked for the standard form. Easy stuff. Okay, now moving on to question number 2, it says that figure 2.1 shows a section through the human eye. Identify the letter on figure 2.1 that has been used to label the part of eye that contains that contains circular and radius muscles. So the part of the eye which contains circular and radius muscles is iris, right? They are talking about iris. So this is the labeling of iris. So J is the correct answer. Next is has the highest concentration of the light receptor. So this is present in the centra fovealis. So, or you can say fovea, and this is this region on the retina, which is labeled as N. Okay, moving on to the next part. On figure 2.1, draw and label the lens and the suspensory ligaments. So the lenses are attached with the ciliary body through suspensory ligaments. So these are the ciliary bodies with these are the ciliary bodies. Okay, this dot region. So first you will draw a lens here, and with lens you will make suspensory ligaments. Okay. Now they are asking for explain the function of suspensory ligaments. So suspensory ligaments basically controls the shape of the lens and it allows us to accommodate the size of the lens to view the far objects and the near objects. So we know that suspensory ligaments is required for accommodation it changes the shape of the lens, it contracts or relaxes to adjust the shape of lens. Okay, now moving on to the next part. It says that some people have a genetic condition called cornea plana. This condition causes the cornea to be flatter than usual. Explain why the person with cornea plana cannot see the objects clearly. Because see, whatever we are able to see is due to the light being refracted through the cornea and the lens, and then after getting focused on the retina, it is interpreted by our brain what we see. Right, so when the cornea becomes flat, the refraction does not occur properly, and hence it will not be, and hence the light will not be able to focus on the retina, and you will not be able to see clearly. So what is happening? Light. I'm just writing the key points. You in exams, obviously, you'll have to write the answer in the paragraph form. Paragraph form. Light will not be refracted, and then what will happen? It will not be focused on the retina. Okay, next part. One type of cornea plana is caused by recessive allele. Two people who do not have the cornea plana have a child who has the condition. Explain how this is possible. Obviously, if it is caused by recessive allele, it will only occur when an individual have homozygous recessive condition, right? So it can be possible in cases of heterozygous parents, which means the parents which do not have the disease, but they are the carriers of the disease. Okay. So how is it possible? It means that parents must be heterozygous for the condition. Recessive allele from both parents is transferred to the child. Okay, now let's move on to the next question. It says figure 3.1 shows the summary of the protein metabolism in the body. Okay, so in the first box, protein is digested in the stomach by enzyme A. Then we have protein digested in the small intestine by enzyme B. Then amino acids are absorbed in the bloodstream and goes through a blood vessel C. Excess amino acids converted into urea in the liver. Urea is filtered from the blood in the kidney and is excreted eventually. So use figure 3.1 to answer these questions. State the name of the enzyme A and B. So you know that enzyme A is acting in the stomach and enzyme B is acting on the proteins in the small intestine. So you know that in the stomach only pepsin is present, right? So A must be pepsin. And for enzyme B, And for enzyme B, we have trypsin because that is present in small intestine. Okay, now moving on to the next part, state the name of the blood vessel. See, let me show you what is the blood vessel. See, amino acids which were formed from the proteins through the action of the enzymes pepsin and trypsin, those amino acids are absorbed into the bloodstream, all right, and then it goes and the excess ones are converted to urea into the liver. So how the amino acids, the excess amino acids go from the bloodstream to the liver. It goes through the hepatic portal vein. Hepatic portal vein. Okay, moving on to the next question. Name the capillary structure in the kidney that filter the urea from the blood. So you know that this is the filtration in the kidney helps in the the filtration in the kidneys occur through the glomerulus capillaries. Okay, so our correct answer would be glomerulus. Okay, next part, two groups of students X and Y investigate the effect of different diets on the concentration of urea in the urine for one day. Two groups eat different foods. Group X eat bread, jam, orange juice, lettuce, and fruit. Group Y eat nuts, milk, bread, cheese, and meat. So you can see already that group Y has consumed more sources of proteins. Okay. Now the table 3.1 shows their results. The results basically show the concentration of urea in the urine of individual students in group X and Y. So first part asks you to calculate the mean concentration of urea from the students in group Y. So it's easy, it's really easy to find it out. 1.8 plus 1.9 plus 2.3 plus 2.5 plus 1.9 plus 2.4 divided by 6, right? So the correct answer would be approximately 2.1. Moving on to the next part, explain the difference in the mean concentrations of urea for the two groups of the students. So as I already told you that the group Y has consumed a diet rich in proteins. Hence, more amino acids are formed and the more excess amino acids will be converted into urea. So, group Y consumed diet rich in proteins. More amino acids are formed and deaminated to urea. After deamination, what happens? More urea is filtered into urine. Okay, moving on to the next part. One of the students said to make fair comparison, we should have made sure that students in each group drank the same volume of water. Explain why this student is correct. Obviously, in order to make this experiment more reliable, we have to make sure that each group drank the same volume of water. And the reason is that because it affects the volume of the water used to form urine, right? The more the volume of water you consume, the more the urine will be formed. Hence, in case the person drinks less water, what will happen? Its urine will obviously be more concentrated as compared to the person who has consumed more water. So it's very important that in order to get the more accurate results, what we'll need to do that we need to provide both groups individuals the same amount of water. So make sure that the concentration of the urine that the concentration of the urine is due to the urea and not due to the less water consumption. Okay, so what we'll be writing in the answer is that the volume of the water affects the volume affects the volume and concentration of urine which is produced. Okay, moving on to the next question. Chlorophyll is found in all organisms that photosynthesize. Complete these sentences about chlorophyll by writing the suitable words in the gaps. A chlorophyll molecule contains carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and an atom of magnesium, because you know that magnesium deficiency in plants leads to production of less chlorophyll and makes the plant appear yellow. So magnesium is one of the most important components of the chlorophyll. Okay. Chlorophyll molecules are found in plant structures called chloroplast. Okay. The type of leaf cells that contain most chlorophyll are the palisade mesophyll cells, and spongy mesophyll cells contain least amount of chlorophyll. Okay. Next, chlorophyll molecules trap sunlight and energy, and this is used by plants to produce glucose. Glucose can then be converted to dash to be transported around the plant. So the glucose is transported in the form of sucrose in the plants through the phloem, and glucose can also be converted to dash to make cell wall. So that must be cellulose, which is the component of the cell wall. Next part, it says that mistletoe is a parasitic green plant that can often be seen growing attached to the trees. Figure 4.1 shows some mistletoe growing on the branch of a tree, most plants have about 1 milligram of chlorophyll in 100 gram of their leaves. This plant, however, has about 0.5 milligram of chlorophyll in 100 gram of its leaves. So it's quite less, even less than 50%. Its seeds are stuck to the branches of the trees by birds. So what happens? The trees of this plant is attached to the uh, branches of other trees by the birds. The seeds germinate to produce special roots that grow into the phloem of the tree branch. So when the seed germinates, it produces a special root which gets connected to the phloem of the tree to which it is attached. So just why it grows these special roots. So obviously you know that it is producing less chlorophyll, right? So it is producing less chlorophyll, which means that it is carrying out less photosynthesis. And when there is less photosynthesis or low amount of photosynthesis occurring, there will be less sugar formed. You can even write glucose or sucrose. So it obtains sugar from the tree, from the phloem of the tree. As you know, that phloem carries transports sucrose in the plant. Perfect. Okay, now moving on to the next question. Okay, so now let's continue with question number 5. It says that figure 5.1 shows a model of human circulatory system. Give the name of the blood vessel represented by V in figure 5.1. So the blood vessel, which is represented by V in figure 5.1, is basically a vessel which is transporting the blood from the lungs into the heart. So it's the pulmonary vein which takes the blood from the lungs to the heart. And which type of blood this is? It's the oxygenated blood which has been oxygenated by the lungs and is now being transported to the heart. It's the only vessel, it's the only vein which carries the oxygenated blood. Okay, the next question is the system is described as a double circulatory system. This is a very high yielding question, and in cases of hard questions, it usually comes. So what is meant by double circulation? Double circulation means that blood travels through the heart twice. To the heart twice when during each circulation. So in order to take your 2 marks, you have to mention about that it is happening in each circulation. Okay. Now, next part, explain how the structure of the human heart is adapted to be the pump in a double circulatory system. So we have to basically write about the structure of the heart. So the first thing is that it has four chambers. Four chambers separated from each other by what? By septum, or in plural, septa. Okay. And why is it important? To make sure, or we can write to prevent mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. Another thing that we have is the thick walled ventricles, which allows high pressure blood to the whole body. Next question. People with a hole in their heart. Some people have a heart defect called a hole in the heart. People with a hole in their heart may develop pain in their muscles and quickly become tired when they exercise. Explain why this happens. So, when you know that each of the chambers of the heart is separated from each other and there is no mixing of the blood. However, when there is a hole in the heart, what will happen? The oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood will mix. So, what will happen when there is a hole in the heart? Blood from oxygenated, or you can say from right and left sides, from both sides, mix. Or you can write mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. Now, what will be the result of this mixing? There will be less amount of oxygen or decreased amount of oxygen, decreased oxygen reaches or supplied to muscles. And when there is less oxygen, what will happen? The muscles will respire will start anaerobic respiration. Hence, anaerobic respiration will lead to increased lactic acid, and when lactic acid accumulates, it will cause the fatigue of muscles. Okay, so this was it. And that's why due to fatigue they become tired. So this was it for question number 5. Question number 6 says that biofuels are made from plant material or animal waste. They are used as a replacement for the fossil fuels such as petrol and oil. Fossil fuels were made over the longer period of times, millions of years ago. Biofuels may or may not be a sustainable resource. So describe what is meant by a sustainable resource. So sustainable resources are those resources which are produced as rapidly as they are being um, removed, or you can say consumed. So what will happen, just like fossil fuels, it will not run out because fossil fuels take millions of years ago. We are consuming it quickly and it takes millions of years to form. However, the sustainable resources will be produced at the same rate as they are being consumed, and hence they will not be. Let's write the answer. Sources, one second. Sources, produced as rapidly as they are consumed. Hence, it will not run out. Okay. Next question. Alcohol is used as a biofuel. It can be made from plants such as sugarcane, which grow in the tropical countries such as Brazil. Describe how a living organism can be used to convert sugar found in the plants into alcohol. So you know that it is usually done by the fungi, which is yeast, and we can use yeast, which will cause the fermentation of the plants to form the alcohol. So yeast can ferment sugar into alcohol. Next question, next part, figure 6.1 gives some information about the alcohol production and deforestation. One second. Deforestation in Brazil from 2012 to 2016. You can see that alcohol production over the years also increased, as well as deforestation. So you have to suggest an explanation for the changes shown in figure 6.1 and describe the possible impact of these changes. Okay, so first of all, what's happening in the graph? It shows that alcohol production as well as deforestation has increased over the years. Okay, so this is what you have observed. Now you have to talk about its impact. Okay, I'll talk about both negative and positive impacts because they have not explicitly mentioned what type of impact they are talking about. So when there will be deforestation, what will happen? It leads to, first we'll talk about negative impact. Okay, so increased carbon dioxide can lead to increased global warming and climate change. Okay. What else disadvantages can be caused by deforestation? Soil erosion. And what will happen as a result of soil erosion? Loss of fertile land. And in order to produce alcohol, what you will be needing? You will be needing the ground to produce the sugar canes and other plants. Mainly sugar cane is used to produce alcohol. So you will be causing deforestation for, wait a second, I have it long spelling. Deforestation for sugar cane for alcohol production. Okay, what could be the positive impact of deforestation which we are causing for production of alcohol? So it means that it will provide us with the alcohol which can be a alternative replacement, alternative for fossil fuels. You know that fossil fuels is running out and we need other resources or other alternative options. And when there will be less fossil fuels burning, there will be less global warming. Okay, see, the global warming point is coming in both positive and negative impact, but with different stance. In negative impact, we mentioned about the increased carbon dioxide due to what? Due to deforestation, which we are causing for production of more plants of sugarcane for making alcohol. However, in case of using alcohol as an alternative fossil fuel, what will happen? There will be less production of carbon dioxide due to the burning of the fossil fuels. Hence, there will be less global warming. Okay, now moving on to the next question. HIV and MRSA are two different microorganisms which are pathogens. HIV is basically a virus, and MRSA is basically methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, which is again a bacteria which is resistant to an antibiotic like penicillin and methicillin. Okay, put ticks in table 7.1 to show the characteristics of each pathogen. So we know that HIV is not a living cell. However, MRSA, which is the bacteria, is a living cell. Hence, we will take this. Then contains cytoplasm. HIV is the virus. It does not contain cytoplasm. However, bacteria does contain cytoplasm. The genetic materials is carried by both HIV and MRSA, and the protein coat is possessed by HIV and not the bacteria. Okay. Describe next part. Describe how HIV affects the human immune system. Very easy. It weakens the immune system. It weakens the immune system by lowering. Basically, they attack what? White blood cells by lowering number of leukocytes, which are your white blood cells, and decreased ability, because white cells are responsible for producing what? Antibodies, and decreased antibody production. For different reasons, HIV and MRSA are not destroyed by antibiotics such as penicillin. Give these reasons. So why HIV is not being killed by the antibiotic penicillin? Because it is a virus. So it cannot be killed by an antibiotic. Okay, and why MRSA? Because it is, as I told you, the full form of MRSA is methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. So it is resistant to the antibiotic. To antibiotic, or you can write penicillin. Antibiotic. Or you can say penicillin. Next part. Figure 7.1 shows the number of people infected by the MRSA pathogen in different countries. It shows the total amount of antibiotics used in each country in 1 year per 1,000 people. You can see that as the number of people infected by the MRSA pathogen increases, or oh sorry, you can see that as the amount of antibiotics used in 1 year per 1,000 people increases, it also increases the number of people infected by the MRSA pathogen. So they are asking you to describe this relationship and explain it. So as more antibiotics, you know that more antibiotics are used more people are affected by the pathogen. Why is it so? Because these antibiotics will not kill the bacteria because they are resistant to it. So, using more antibiotics to kill pathogen is useless. And use of antibiotics in the when we use antibiotics rapidly and in increased frequency in a population, it will cause the increased number of the resistant bacteria. Will increase resistant bacteria. Okay, now moving on to the last question. Figure 8.1 shows a synapse between a sensory neuron and a relay neuron. Explain how impulses in the sensory neuron can stimulate the relay neuron. So basically, you have to talk about the whole sensory, the whole synaptic response. Okay, so what happens is, firstly, the impulse stimulates sensory neuron, and what will happen? Release, and it will cause release of neurotransmitters. I'm writing in short, neurotransmitters from the vesicles into the synapse. Okay, it will diffuse through the synapse. It will diffuse through synapse. And then what will happen? It will bind with its receptors. As soon as it binds with the receptors, it will stimulate the relay neuron. It will stimulate the relay neuron to initiate an impulse. So basically, your relay neuron is your postsynaptic neuron. This we have also discussed in detail in the previous paper. Initiate an impulse. which will be then carried to the motor neuron. Okay, now moving on to the next part. Analgesics are the drugs that help to stop a person from feeling pain. Figure 8.2 shows the shape of some analgesic drug molecules, suggest how this analgesic drug can help to stop a person from feeling the pain. So basically, there are pain receptors in our body. These analgesic drugs have the same shape to the neurotransmitter which bind to those pain receptors. And obviously, when when these drugs will bind to the receptors, the pain receptors, what will happen? The neurotransmitters which causes the pain stimulation, that will no longer be sent to our brain, and hence we will not be able to feel the pain. So what happens is that analgesic drug wait a second. Analgesic drugs are similar in structure to neurotransmitters, so they bind with the receptors and prevents binding of neurotransmitters. So what will happen? No information of pain is sent to the brain. Okay, this is how painkillers prevent the person to feel the pain. So this marks the end of the paper here. I hope you understood the paper, and I shall see you in the next session.